we were talking about something completely different than what has been on my channel so far, and that is PMDD. That is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And we're talking about it because this is essentially going to be the start of my journey of getting off of birth control, which I've been using for the past 10 plus years to treat my PMDD symptoms. And as of like a week ago, I am off birth control. I'm scared about it because I don't know if I'm gonna feel as horrible as I did when I was pretty much undiagnosed with it and still suffering symptoms. But I'm doing it, and we're gonna get into why. But first, I think we need to talk about what PMDD is because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand it or don't know what it is or they've just never heard of it. So we need to give that acknowledgement so we can educate people on the internet. So in simple terms, pretty much what PMDD is a extremely severe form of PMS. I feel like a lot of people know what PMS and PMSing is. Also, if you don't know what PMS is, it's essentially a collection of physical and emotional symptoms that happen prior to your period. So, stuff like bloating, cravings, mood swings, etc. But yeah, I kind of like to describe PMDD as PMS on crack because, yeah, it really is that intense. That's essentially what it is. Also, here are some PMDD symptoms directly taken from the DSM-5. Depressed mood, feelings of hopelessness, self-deprecating thoughts, anxiety, tension, feelings of being keyed up or on edge, decreased interest in usual activities, difficulty in concentration, lethargy. Again, PMDD stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And yeah, it's called premenstrual because typically these symptoms arrive about 1 to 2 weeks before your period and then can sometimes last a couple days into your period or after your period. And then it's called dysphoric likely because you feel extremely dysphoric in yourself and body and it's just extremely disruptive. And yeah, it's a fucking disorder. PMS, not severe enough to be deemed as disorder. And okay, a frustrating thing about PMDD is that we actually don't know the exact cause of it, why it happens. And I would bet you a lot of money the reason there's not much research put into it and we still don't know this after years is because it's, a woman's problem. Yeah, I swear to God, if this was affecting men, this would be actually looked into and maybe even solved and figured out why it happens. Luckily, there are a lot of solutions to PMDD, but it really depends on each individual's body and make how their body is made up. It's an extremely personal sort of disorder to treat, from my understanding. And birth control works for a lot of people, like it did for me, but that is not the case for every single person with PMDD. So yeah, it's a very complicated disorder, and that could be another reason why we don't completely understand it and haven't completely figured out ways to solve it for everyone. However, in recent years, there has been developments of scientists and stuff figuring out kind of maybe why it happens. I swear to you, when I was diagnosed at 11 or 12, which was, I'm 24 now, almost 25, so I don't know, do the math there. That's 12 years or something? Ugh, I can't math. 12 years ago, or even less than that, like 5 years ago, I swear to God, there was not this much information about PMDD online. I remember looking up PMDD fairly early on into my diagnosis because I don't know, I actually forgot the name of it and still didn't know what I had, but I knew that a doctor had been like, "Oh, you probably have this." And then I had to find it out on my own. Anyways, oh, this thing's so cute, but I'm actually I'm overheating somehow. My frigid room. But yeah, there was very, very limited information about PMDD online. Definitely not as much on Reddit from what I can remember. Maybe I just wasn't on Reddit because I was kind of young, but definitely not as many like official like health and medical pages on PMDD. Now you can actually find quite a few that are reliable and a good resource, which I will link some down below. But I'm just gonna talk about what are like the new developments in the research, because that it's been very enlightening for me, and I've genuinely been waiting for this research for a good portion of my life. And yeah, it's just unfortunate that it took this long for them to have. I mean, they still don't have a solid understanding, but they're starting to. So that's a pro. So yeah, I have some notes written here. So yeah, the exact cause isn't known, but it may be an abnormal reaction to normal hormone changes that happen with each menstrual cycle. And I've read somewhere that it's not a hormonal imbalance. If it was, we'd be able to treat it a lot easier. It does, however, seem to be correlated to like the brain. So yeah, that is a key factor. PMDD also causes a serotonin deficiency, which is why so many people with PMDD like become suicidal, essentially, myself included. You know, when I was in middle school and experiencing it for the first time and not knowing what the fuck was going on. And yeah, I read into a paper briefly that it seems to be a disorder of suboptimal sensitivity to neuroactive steroid hormones, aka known as NAs. Yeah, like there was a discussion for a while there that it was about too much progesterone. I don't know how to pronounce that fuck. But that doesn't actually seem to be caused, like I said, because it's not about hormone imbalance, like there being too much of hormones or not enough of the other ones. And a crazy statistic that I found, which I had an inkling about, but I had no like confirmation about it until now, is that one of the hormones, allopregnanolone, we're gonna put it on the screen for y'all, also appears to be implicated in autism spectrum disorder. And there was actually a statistic that around 92% of women or AFAB people with autism also have PMDD. Like, crazy. Also, I'll have you know it does not work the other way around. Like, people with PMDD, 92% of them are not necessarily autistic. It's just clearing that up. But this is so wild to me because a few years ago, I started to realize that I may be autistic, and I think I have since kind of confirmed to that after much analysis and observation of myself and looking into my past and stuff. That, yeah, I am indeed on the spectrum of autism. And I remember at one point realizing that part of the reason, like, my PMDD made me feel it the way I did was to do with the autism. That's why it was so bad, because a big problem of my PMDD was the fact that it felt like I couldn't communicate with people or talk to people in the way that I was used to. And I think PMDD essentially like ripped off my mask, like it completely like tore apart my masking and being able to do that, and just left me like with no coping strategies at all. And it was like so terrifying and horrible. I've read up on some stories of other people that have experienced PMDD, and not all, but a lot of stories seem to be about how people have had really, really intense like anger, and they describe themselves as like becoming a monster essentially, and it just destroying the relationships and stuff. But for me, I never really experienced that, and I was always very curious as to like why my experience differed from that. And yeah, I was like, I think it's because of the autism. So it is so interesting and crazy to me that most people with autism likely have PMDD. So like, I don't know, scientists should look into the correlation of that and maybe they'll be able to understand why the fuck PMDD happens and how we can like prevent symptoms. That's my hope. I think we're getting close here, y'all. So yeah, from the studies, our understanding is that the problem has to do with neuroactive steroid or NAs in our brains called allopregnanolone. Should have looked this shit up off to how to pronounce it, but here we are. Yeah, that hormone operating differently compared to non-PMDD people. That seems to be like where we're at scientifically in research of PMDD. But anyways, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about, yeah, my PMDD journey a little bit more and like why I'm choosing to get off of something that seems to have alleviated my symptoms all these years. So we do need a water break though for my handy dandy flask water bottle. It is indeed water. I promise you that. So yeah, a bit more context about my own PMDD journey. But anyways, pretty much when I was in like grade 6, so I think that's like the ages of 11, 12, I started feeling really off randomly, and I was struggling being able to talk to people in the same way. I very much did not feel myself at all. It was very kind of an out of body experience and extremely like disorienting. And yeah, then that feeling progressively got worse. I felt like severely depressed, as if all the serotonin for my body was just sapped, which, that is kind of probably what was happening in my brain. I did not enjoy doing things anymore. I was constantly dreading having to go to school and interacting with people because it did not come naturally to me anymore, and it just felt like people could tell that something was wrong, and I had to try so hard to like pretend nothing was wrong, and it was just like so much effort put into it, and this led me feeling like so emotionally unstable and horrible and extremely emotional and triggered by things. I also like could not focus on the most simplest of things. Like I still remember to this day that in like home ec we had to do like a crossword or something, like a very easy crossword, and I like just couldn't do it because I just like had absolutely no focus and my brain was like focused on feeling horrible essentially. So yeah, and then eventually these symptoms, after what seemed like a long ass time, which was probably like for like over a week to 2 weeks of feeling like this, I can't quite remember. But yeah, then I would start feeling better and I would go back to normal. And I was like, thank fucking God. I thought that was going to last forever. And hopefully YouTube does not like delete this video or whatever. But yeah, I remember like my friend being like, well, see you in band class tomorrow. And then my head being like, yeah, you won't see me in band class tomorrow because I'm just not going to be here. I'm not going to exist tomorrow. Like, I do not plan on like fucking existing another day, but I never actually like went forth physically with anything that's like suicidal, but there was definite idealization of I don't want to be here anymore. I want to essentially just not exist until this is over so I can wake up like myself again. Yeah, and it was really bad. And then yeah, it kind of went away. I was like, holy shit, I am myself again, thank God. And then not that long after, because the menstrual cycle is a monthly fucking thing, those feelings started creeping back, and it was horrifying because I was like, the demon has me again, whatever the fuck this is. My parents had no idea what was wrong and tried to, like, we tried all sorts of things. Like, we tried, like, child therapy, taking, like, iron pills. Like, we went to, like, a naturopath because the doctors didn't know what was up. We just tried all sorts of things and we were trying to get to the bottom of this. At one point, like, I thought that I had, like, bipolar disorder because I remember someone coming in to have a talk in middle school about bipolar, and I was like kind of resonating with a lot of those symptoms. So I was like, maybe that's me. but no. And then eventually, like, after, like, I wanna say a couple years of this, maybe it was just months, honestly, felt like years. I had a like, my doctor, my normal doctor was not in town, and there was, like, a woman doctor that was in, and God bless her, because we were explaining my symptoms and stuff to her and being like, "This is still, like, nothing is working." She was like, "Maybe you have PMDD." And we are like, "What the fuck's that?" And she's like, "We should try putting you on birth control and seeing if that helps." And voila, it did. It pretty much made my PMDD non-existent, which, like, literally that is was incredible. And so, yeah, after I think a couple months of that, it did start working, and I no longer experienced these, like, really, really intense symptoms. And I was like, I'm fixed. I'm all better. At this point, I still actually didn't know the name of my condition. Like I mentioned earlier, I just, like, never really wrote down what she said, or I guess had access to the doctor notes because I was pretty young and just, I guess, didn't think that was something I could do. But yeah, I just cared that I didn't feel horrible anymore. I was like, okay, I'm fine taking this birth control. But yeah, then, funnily enough, not actually so funnily, in high school, and I think probably later in middle school, I did actually experience the PMDD symptoms coming back quite severely, even though I was on birth control. I have a feeling it was just because of me not taking the birth control quite on time, because I wasn't great at that. I would sometimes, like, accidentally miss a couple days, which is not ideal and doesn't work the way it should when you do that. But also, another reason I think why it was triggered was because I was in a very different environment than what I was used to. And by that I mean I was at, like, summer camp, where I was on, like, a multiple day trip with a group of people. And so there's just, like, constant socializing. And so, yeah, despite me still being on birth control, a lot of the symptoms were triggered, mostly kind of the social ones, where it was, like, very much a difficulty for me to talk to people normally without analyzing, like, how I was saying things and how I was acting towards them. Yeah, I couldn't, and I felt, like, horrible, and it was just not a good time because I was like, I'm here to have, like, a good time at Christian summer camp, but I couldn't because I was, like, transported back in time into these horrible PMDD symptoms, and it was just not fun, and I just, like, I've never felt so emotionally exhausted and mentally exhausted. But yeah, as soon as I left the summer camp, then I started feeling more normal myself. And that's why I think it's linked to autism, because of the social thing. But that's essentially the story. And since high school, I actually have been lucky enough for my symptoms to not randomly come back. And yeah, I have not ever felt as horrible as I did in middle school when it first was, like, all happening. Now that then brings us to why I've decided to get off birth control and try alternate ways of dealing with the symptoms and combating them if they, come back in the same way that I experienced them back then. And that's because, well, my entire time during puberty, I have been on birth control, and I've always seen a bit of a problem with that personally, not to judge anyone that also has, like, been in that situation, but yeah, I have been on birth control since, like, age 11 to age 24, almost 25, and that is kind of scary to me. Like, the fact that I am having to physically alter or, like, hormonally alter stuff in my body to then not feel a certain way, I don't know, it just doesn't quite sit right with me, and I'm just at the point where I'm like, I really want to know what my body cycles are like without something inhibiting things within my body, because that's all I've known. I went through my entirety of puberty on birth control. I've never taken breaks from it really, other than when I've missed a couple days. So I'm just like, it's due time. I've been thinking about this for, like, a year or so, about seriously doing this. I think it's time because I'm pretty much unemployed and living back with my mother. who knows what would go on, say if my symptoms were to come back. So it's like I am in a safe place to do this and try something else. But yeah, that's why. And honestly, literally a week ago, I just realized, oh shit, I haven't started a new pack of my birth control. It's been 3 days. And then I was like, maybe I don't have to. Maybe I don't have to go back because I've been talking about getting off of it for a while now. And I have been seriously wanting to take the proactive steps of doing that. And I have like things in place to try if the symptoms come back. And just finding out if I can find an alternate way to treating my symptoms other than birth control. I want to figure that out now before, I really have to, like if I, really want to conceive a child. And yeah, I want to start understanding more about my PMDD and myself in general, like now rather than later. So that's kind of that's like the backbone, the reason of wanting to do that. There's also, a lot of just like other little reasons sprinkled in. But yeah, I think 10 plus years on birth control, although is like the norm for a lot of people out there, I think just once the 10-year mark hit, I was like, damn, I actually I actually want to try something different and see if that works. And I'm not opposed to then going back on birth control if all fucking fails. But I just need to see if there's like other ways. In recent days and months and past year, I've been like looking into more natural ways of dealing with PMDD symptoms. What I am planning on trying if my symptoms come back and they're like really bad, I'm going to be using Vitex, or what is also called chasteberry or chaste tree, because I've heard that helps a lot of people even like with their PMS symptoms, and some people with PMDD have had success with it. But also like it could go horribly wrong. Vitex can cause like depression for people if like they already have it. It can make it worse and stuff like that. And it also like don't take it while taking birth control because it makes the birth control like not effective, because it's essentially just like it's not altering your hormones, but it's kind of like encouraging them to produce the hormones that they're supposed to, essentially. That's my understanding of it. But yeah, I'm not expecting to notice much of a difference for at least a few more weeks. Like once I have like 3 more weeks until I would have my period on the pill. But sometimes, it takes like 2-3 months of not being on the birth control for your body to actually understand that it's not on birth control, and it to, react and adjust back. So yeah, I'm really hoping that into the New Year's, because it's December like 15th today or something. I'm hoping that into the New Year's I won't feel like shit and won't have my symptoms come up. But that's a possibility, and I'm also supposed to throw a party for New Year's. But yeah, we're fingers crossed I'm not gonna feel like absolute shit. I am hopeful on this journey because there's so much more information and resources online. I feel like a lot more confident within my decision of doing this and knowing that there's like alternatives, and there's like a lot of people online sharing their stories. This is like my first video on that you might not hear from me for a while because there might not be much changing, but I am like making note of each week anything that I'm experiencing or not experiencing. I'm trying to kind of steady myself and study how my body is reacting to getting off of birth control. I've also am taking a bunch of supplements. Fuck, I forgot to take my supplements today, so I'm gonna do that after this. But I'm taking a bunch of supplements, which a lot of people do when they're getting off birth control, whether they have PMDD or not. So I'm taking like zinc and magnesium, and like a B complex, along with some other things that I've been taking. So I'm just doing everything in my power to like prevent the worst of the worst. And also, yeah, good gut health. I'm trying to improve my gut health for other reasons. Yeah, that helps. Eating well helps. Exercising, just having a good health in general. That's actually like a big theme and goal of mine this next year, is to like focus on solving a bunch of my health issues and doing whatever it takes. Yeah, I am a little bit worried. I understand the risks of this, but like I have a support system this time. I'm not like a tween, so things are just like probably not going to be as intense. I now know what's happening. I know what it is. I now know what I need to ask of people for if my symptoms come back, is that I need to like not force myself to go into school or work, not force myself to socialize, just treat myself well and tell people what's going on, because now I know what's going on. So we're in a much better space for this. But yeah, I think this video is like terribly fucking long. I'm gonna try my best to edit it down, but look out for more videos. Hopefully nothing drastic is gonna happen, but I am filming this all and making note of this all for the sake of myself, but also for the sake of others that may have PMDD or a similar experience or condition, or like getting off of birth control. I just like want to make sure that people have access to that online, because yeah, there, as I was saying, there was really not much content at all, and still not really, about PMDD, and I would like to change that. So I hope this reaches whoever it needs to. I hope that this is helpful for you in some way. I hope that you learn something. I hope that this enlightened you. Whatever, I just hope it did something for you. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to like the video if you feel like doing so, and subscribe, because yeah, there will be more stuff like this. I also have like a bunch of other shit on my channel. I have like tarot readings, astrology bullshit. Um, I got like asexuality education videos. I got a whole bunch of random shit. So if any of those things interesting you, then feel free to go check out my channel. Okay, I'm gonna sign off. Okay, bye!